There's a type of person who wants more money, genuinely wants it, but every time they get close to it, they pull back. They don't spend it. They don't invest it. They almost don't let themselves have it. And from the outside, it looks like laziness or a lack of ambition or maybe just bad habits. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is much more interesting and honestly, much more heartbreaking. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who are afraid of money, not people who don't care about money, not people who say money doesn't matter. I mean, people who want a better life, who want financial security, but something inside them keeps blocking it. And here's what most financial content gets completely wrong. They treat this like a math problem. Like if you just budget better, invest smarter, follow a system, you'll be fine. But if it were that simple, why are there people who know exactly what to do with money and still can't do it? Because this isn't about math. This is about psychology, about patterns that were formed long before anyone ever taught you what a savings account was. I've been going deep into the research on this, the behavioral psychology, the attachment theory, the neuroscience, and what I found is going to completely change how you see yourself or someone you love. There are 5 core psychological patterns that drive money fear. And by the end of this video, you're going to recognize at least one of them. Let's get into it. Picture a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old. They don't know what rent means. They don't understand interest rates, but they understand this. When money is tight, the house gets quiet in a bad way. Arguments behind closed doors. A parent looking at bills with that face. The electricity was cut off for a week. Groceries running out before payday. That kid learned something, not from a textbook, from their nervous system. Money equals danger. And here's where it gets fascinating. Psychologists call this a conditioned fear response. Your brain doesn't think in logic, it thinks in patterns. And if the pattern it learned early on is, when money is talked about, bad things happen, your brain will try to protect you from that feeling forever. So as an adult, when money comes up, when you think about your bank account, when you get a raise, when someone talks about investing, your brain doesn't think opportunity. It thinks threat, and threats make you freeze or run. This is why some people avoid checking their bank account for weeks. It's not stupidity, it's protection. Their brain is still running a program that was written in childhood, still trying to keep them safe from something that scared them 20 or 30 years ago. The cruel part, the program worked back then. If you grew up in a chaotic home, learning to emotionally disconnect from money did protect you. It helped you survive something you had no control over. The problem is, that program never got updated, and now it's running in an adult life where money is actually the key to the freedom and stability you've always wanted. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. When you picture a wealthy person in your mind, what do you see? Because for a lot of people, that image isn't positive, greedy, cold, out of touch, someone who stepped on others to get there, someone who changed and lost themselves. And here's the psychological trap hidden in that belief. If, somewhere deep down, you associate wealth with being bad, then accumulating wealth starts to feel like a threat to your identity, to who you are, to how people see you. Psychologists call this money script conflict, and it was studied extensively by Dr. Brad Klontz, a financial psychologist who found that our beliefs about money are usually formed before we're even 10 years old. They come from what we saw, what we heard, what we absorbed from the adults around us. And some of the most common scripts look like this. Rich people are greedy. Money changes people. We're not the kind of family that has money. Now, those beliefs don't just sit quietly in the background. They actively shape behavior. Someone who believes deep down that wealth makes you a bad person will unconsciously self-sabotage. They'll overspend right before they hit a milestone. They'll undercharge for their work. They'll turn down opportunities that feel too big. Not because they don't want success, but because success, to their subconscious, means becoming someone they don't want to be. It's not laziness, it's loyalty. Loyalty to an identity that was built in a world where money represented everything wrong. The work isn't learning to budget. The work is asking, who told me that money makes you bad? And then asking, was that actually true? Here's something that sounds strange until you've lived it. Some people are more comfortable being broke than being stable. Not because they prefer struggle, but because struggle is what they know. Psychologists call this familiarity bias. But in the context of trauma, it goes deeper than that. When your entire childhood was spent in a state of scarcity, your nervous system calibrated to that as normal, and when things get better, when money actually starts coming in, when the account has a cushion, when there's no immediate crisis, your nervous system doesn't relax. It panics. Because calm feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels unsafe. This is the person who gets a raise and immediately finds a reason to spend it, who pays off a debt and takes on another one right away, who earns more every year but somehow still feels just as broke. From the outside, it looks self-destructive. From the inside, it feels completely involuntary, because it is. That low-level hum of financial stress that they felt since childhood, that's what normal feels like to their nervous system. Stability feels like waiting for something bad to happen. There's actually research on this. Studies on adverse childhood experiences, what researchers call ACEs, show that financial instability in early life doesn't just affect childhood. It rewires how the brain responds to safety and risk for decades. The body gets used to surviving, and it doesn't know how to shift into thriving, so it recreates what it knows. Not out of laziness, not out of stupidity, out of biology. This one is quieter than the others, but it might be the deepest one. There's a question that most people with a complicated relationship with money have never actually asked themselves out loud. Do I believe I deserve to be financially okay? Not rich, not wealthy, just okay, stable, safe. And the answer, if they're truly honest, is often no. Not because they'll say that, but because their actions say it for them. There's a pattern that shows up over and over in people who grew up in difficult environments, whether it was a home full of chaos, emotional neglect, being told they were too much, or just never feeling like they were quite enough. They internalized a specific story about their own worth. And that story says, you're not someone things work out for. Psychologists call this low financial self-efficacy, the belief that you aren't capable of managing money well, that you'll mess it up, that financial security is for other people. And that belief is quietly devastating because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't believe you deserve financial stability, you won't build it. You'll find ways to undermine it without even realizing that's what you're doing. You'll procrastinate on learning. You'll give money away compulsively. You'll say yes to helping others financially while your own account is empty. You'll feel guilty having savings when the people around you are struggling. There's actually a name for that last one, money guilt. And it's extremely common in people who grew up in financially stressed families. Making more than your parents or siblings can feel like a betrayal, like leaving people behind, like you did something wrong just by doing better. So they stay small, not because they can't grow, but because growing feels disloyal. And that's a kind of grief that nobody talks about. Here's where it all ties together. You've probably noticed that people who struggle with money fear don't usually lack information. They know they should save, they know they should invest, they've watched the videos, maybe read the books, and yet nothing changes. That's because information operates on the conscious mind, and money fear doesn't live in the conscious mind, it lives in the body, in the nervous system, in the automatic responses that fire before you even have a chance to think. Psychologists call this avoidance behavior, and it's one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. When something has been associated with pain, and for many people, money has been associated with fear, conflict, shame, loss, or instability, the brain creates a simple protective rule: stay away from that. Don't look at the bank account, don't open the bill, don't think about retirement, don't engage with money at all if you can avoid it. Because not looking feels safer than looking and seeing something painful, but avoidance has a cost. Every time you avoid it, the fear grows stronger. The avoidance confirms to your brain that this thing is dangerous, that you were right to stay away. And so the loop continues. The only way out isn't more information, it's exposure, slowly, safely. Rewiring the association between money and threat into something that can be tolerated and eventually even mastered. But that work, that's emotional work. That's the work of healing the fear, not just learning the formula. So here's what I want you to take from this. If you recognize yourself in any of this, if you've ever avoided a bank statement, undercharged for your work, felt guilty for wanting more, sabotaged yourself right when things started getting good, you are not broken. You are not bad with money. You are someone whose nervous system learned to protect them from a version of the world that no longer exists. And that is a very different problem with a very different solution. The financial content industry wants to sell you systems, spreadsheets, investment strategies, and those things can help once the psychological root is addressed. But if you haven't done the internal work, if you haven't started asking where did this belief about money comes from, the system won't stick because the fear is running underneath all of it. The real work is looking at the story you were handed about money, about your worthiness, about what kind of person gets to be financially okay, and deciding whether that story is actually yours or whether it belonged to someone else entirely, and then slowly, patiently building a new one. If this hit home for you, if it explains something you felt but never had the words for, subscribe, because that's what this channel does. We take the psychology that lives underneath everyday behavior and we break it down simply. No jargon, no lectures, just the truth about why people do what they do. And the next video I want you to watch, I'll leave it on screen. It goes even deeper into the psychology of self-sabotage, the specific patterns that show up when people are terrified of their own success. If today's video resonated, that one is going to hit you hard. I'll see you there.